Here's the intro. Hello people watching this video, welcome to my 25th DRS review video. As well as my, good lord, 95th review video on this channel. It's a little complicated to explain in short, but this is my 95th official review video. Anyway, speaking of 95, back in 1995, the world was graced with the start of a cult PlayStation series known as Twisted Metal. While there have technically been vehicular combat games before then, Twisted Metal really popularized the genre. So with every great success, there's always going to be those people, or in this case companies, that want to get a piece of that success pie. So from the late 90s to the mid 2000s, there were quite a few games that attempted to imitate that special feeling Twisted Metal has. Spoilers, none of them could really pull it off, but that doesn't mean they were bad attempts. Now obviously you have games like Mario Kart and Crash Team Racing that have battle modes in cars, or karts if you want to get technical. You also have games like Jak X Combat Racing and the lesser known title Full Auto 2 that have more of a focus on the combat in their battle modes. But today I'll be talking about the ones that are focused primarily on vehicular combat in the way Twisted Metal is. Basically games you could say are Twisted Metal clones, even if that's not exactly right. Now I won't be looking at all of them because, well, I don't have that kind of money. Also, there were a couple that I have reviewed already, or at least one I reviewed and the other one was cancelled, but I had footage of it. So if you'd like to see how Star Wars Demolition is, watch my Danny Treefrog reviews video on it. And if you'd like to see how Road Trip Vacation 2012 is, watch the footage I captured over on my Just Some Gameplay channel. And heck, if you'd like to see how all the Twisted Metal games are, watch my 3-part Dangit Show review on them. If you can get past the old ways, I would make those videos. Now that the shameless plugging is out of the way, let's get to the games. I'll go in alphabetical order, so to start things off we have Cel Damage. This game was originally released in North America as a launch title for the original Xbox in 2001, and then released on GameCube in early 2002. Europe got exclusive access to the PS2 version in late 2002, because of course they did. So with those choices, I decided to go with the PS3 version of Cel Damage HD, which was released in 2014. I haven't read much about the differences, but I imagine it's basically the same, just with a wider and prettier picture. Weirdly enough, the PS3, 4, and Vita versions of this game, as far as I know of, are the only ones to have the E10 Plus rating. Every other version has a T rating. Heck, if you check the ESRB website, this version has a T rating. They're weird sometimes.
Tonight, on a very special episode of Cel Damage, will Violet finally learn of the disease that's slowly killing her? Will Cinder finally become house-trained?
Nah! We'll just drive around way too fast and blow up everything in sight like we do every week. And don't forget to call in during the show and buy crap that you'll never need. Not available in all states. Cel Damage, tonight at 8.
We've certainly got an interesting cast of characters to choose from. There are 6 from the start and 4 you can unlock. I didn't unlock any of them, but we won't be here long anyway. There are 3 different modes to choose from, but Smack Attack is the closest thing to Twisted Metal here.
You okay, Buckaroo?
So we're off to a great start here. The game definitely has a different feel to it than Twisted Metal. As you can imagine, everything is cartoony. The characters, the weapons, the environment, the everything. One thing this game does also have is some advanced physics for the time. The great thing is that it holds up well today. Not perfect of course, but great for a game from the early 2000s. The characters do talk and it can be annoying at times, but it could have been a lot worse. At least the characters are nice to each other.
Why, you piece of
Each character has their own standard weapons. They all basically work the same, they just look different. Of course, you also have obtainable weapons that everyone can use. Another thing you can do, which is pretty nice, is flip your vehicle in 4 different directions using the right control stick. It's pretty good for getting out of being attacked and if you get stuck somewhere. The other 2 modes are fine. Flag Rally is a fun take on modes like Capture the Flag, and Gate Relay, while fine enough, is a bit messy when it comes to the way this game is. There are cutscenes for each character, so there is sort of a story mode.
Whatever you want. Take it. Money, jewelry.
I don't want that. You're gonna put me on the show, see? You're gonna make me a star, if you know what's good for you, huh?
Oh, not you again. You're already on the show, you moron. Oh, actors.
Overall, it's a good game. I'd still pick most Twisted Metal games over this one, but if you want a cartoony take on TM type games, you can play Twisted Metal Small Brawl. But if you want a good one, then play this game. Now we'll move on to a game that's kind of weird. By weird, I mean the fact that this kind of game with this kind of theme exists. The game is WWE Crush Hour. Yes, a WWE themed Twisted Metal clone is real. This game was released in early 2003 for PS2 and GameCube. I might have expected a Demolition Derby game with WWE, but not a full-on blow shit up and weapon-filled vehicles game. But it's real, and I captured footage of the GameCube version, so let's take a look at it. And by the way, I am still sticking with the alphabetical rule. I'm just counting this as Crush Hour, not WWE, you get it.
Welcome to the landscape of television now that WWE owner Mr. McMahon controls all the networks. Now you can see his WWE superstars in all your favorite TV shows and commercials. And though the critics continue to protest, you can't argue with success. In fact, Mr. McMahon is now revving up for his most anticipated and some say dangerous debut to date. A no-holds-barred battle where the superstars trade in their muscle for muscle cars.
Welcome to Crush Hour. Thanks to our sponsor, Mr. McMahon. Tonight, you will witness WWE superstars battling for survival behind the wheel. Let's take you to the action.
And now I don't have to explain the story. Going to the character selection, good lord, there are a lot of characters to choose from, even before unlocking others. There are also many arenas to choose from. Not as many as there are characters, but still a good number of them. I started out using Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, and it is kind of weird to see him like this considering how we see him today. After they introduce the characters, which can take a long time, we finally get to the gameplay. It's meh.
Wow, what a collision!
I mean, I've played worse VC games, but this game is very okay at best. One thing that kind of threw me off was the lack of music during gameplay. I mean, with a game like this, I kind of expect there to be like copyrighted music, but instead it's just crowds and destruction. Anyway, the gameplay itself is your standard setup for a VC game. Each character has standard mounted guns on their vehicles, and you can get various weapons and power-ups in the maps. The annoying thing is that every time you pick up a certain weapon, the announcer will tell you about it. Every single time, I think.
Booker T now has control of the Twisty Rockets.
To be fair, you can mute that, but still. For the next map, I decided to go with Stone Cold Steve Austin. I'm not sure exactly why he comes to mind, I just decided to choose him. I do like the variety of maps in this game. What's also kind of interesting is that every map has its own gameplay mode. They all do have an option to have the standard deathmatch stuff, but each map has a different mode exclusive to it, at least from what I've played. But despite all that, the game overall is still very meh. Maybe the PS2 version would feel better, but I doubt it. It feels like they wanted to sell toys with this concept. I mean, Jakks Pacific makes toys, so it would make sense. But I can see some people getting enjoyment out of it, just not as much as games like Twisted Metal. I suppose if you're a big WWE fan and you've always wanted to get into car combat games, then this might be an alright start. Just don't expect much in terms of gameplay. Now let's go back to PlayStation for this PS2 exclusive VC game that isn't Twisted Metal Black. Which I know that Twisted Metal Black isn't technically PS2 exclusive anymore, but it is the PS2 version, you know what I mean. That game is Motor Mayhem. This game was actually released just 2 days after Twisted Metal Black. Whoops. To be fair, this could be seen as an alternative to TMB in the sense that TMB had an M rating, whereas Motor Mayhem had the T rating, so more people could buy it without needing to be at least 17. Anyway, let's see how this game is. Plot?
Welcome to the Vehicle Combat Mayhem.
So, this is from Vehicle Combat League. Wonder what else they've done. That's a good sign. There only seem to be 8 playable characters here, but they did try to make it interesting by having them on separate teams and each member has a rival on the opposing team. There's a good amount of maps to choose from here, and you can have up to 6 opponents. Kind of weird considering there are 8 characters, so that's just one less you can have there, but it's not a big deal. In terms of gameplay, it kind of surprised me. This probably isn't something you'd notice just watching it, but Twisted Metal has always had a certain control scheme that is different from any other vehicle-based game, with the exception of Twisted Metal 4. Typically, in nearly every game, you use either square or up on the D-pad to move, rather than the usual X to move. Again, TM4 is an exception. Well, in Motor Mayhem, you actually use square to move. It doesn't quite have the same feeling as Twisted Metal, but I thought that was pretty interesting. One major thing I learned while playing this game is, I suck at this game. Like, I really suck at this game. It didn't help that while I was recording, I was kind of far away from the screen. But even if I was closer, I feel like I still would have sucked at this game. I guess that means that the game might be quite good, right? Well, not really. Despite not really being good at the game, I can still tell that some of that was from the game's shortcomings. One thing is that the vehicles feel way too slidey at times, mostly when you're trying to do a sharp turn. It also doesn't feel like there's a lot of precise aiming. And remember how I said earlier that you move with the square button? What I meant to say was that you start your vehicle's movement with the square button. By that, I mean I learned that your vehicle moves on its own. I don't know for sure if that was intentional, but it can really mess you up when you're trying to aim at an opponent. You can slow down and reverse, but it just doesn't feel right. Otherwise, the game can be a fun time. Something else I've realized about this game is I'm pretty sure it was made to potentially sell toys, kind of like WWE Crush Hour maybe. Judging from the way the characters and their vehicles look and with all the freaking ads in the game, I have a feeling they wanted this to be a big franchise for Sony. That's not to say this game didn't have any love put into it, just look at the behind the scenes stuff to see. But overall, the game is fine, just wouldn't play this over most of the Twisted Metal games. We're now halfway through the list of games that I have to play. It's not a very big list. So the last 3 games I want to talk about are part of a franchise that only had 3 games. The series I'll be talking about that was the closest rival to Twisted Metal back in the day is Vigilante 8. This was an Activision franchise, and you can tell by the feel of it. It's kind of hard to explain. Anyway, first we'll take a look at the first game, simply titled Vigilante 8, which was released in 1998 for PlayStation and then 1999 for N64 and Game Boy Color. Odd choice with an odd cartridge. I played the N64 version since I have both that and the second one on my Ed64 Plus. Also, side note, I didn't have the expansion pack when I recorded this, so if it doesn't look as good, keep that in mind. What kind of public domain 70s era sounding music is this? If the music wasn't obvious enough, this game takes place in the 70s, specifically 1975. If you want to look up more about the story, visit your local library and look it up online. Well, the game feels close-ish to the feeling of Twisted Metal. It does have more of a vehicle feeling rather than what Twisted Metal goes for, but it's fine enough. One feature that makes this one kind of stand out is whammies. Whammies are done when you hit opponents with multiple pickup weapons or something like that. I think it happens when you're setting off one weapon while switching really quickly and hitting them at the same time with another. It's okay, but nothing that would make me want this over Twisted Metal. One thing that's annoying as hell is when you don't have a picked up weapon, or if it's not ready yet, you hear a loud buzzing sound each time you press the button. I mean, yes, I could just not press it right away, and it's pretty standard for some games, but it's no less annoying when you press it like I did. Anyway, you have 3 different modes here: Quest, Arcade, and Survival, in that order. I don't think I need to explain as much. You can probably figure out that Quest is the story mode for the characters, Arcade is your standard gameplay, and Survival is an endurance mode. Overall, the game is fine. Nothing that special when compared, of course, to Twisted Metal, but it has enough to stand out on its own. Now let's move on to the sequel, Vigilante 8 Second Offense, or however you say it. This version was released in 1999 for PS1 and Dreamcast, and in 2000 for the version we'll be looking at today, in 64. This time around, the game is set still in the 70s, just 1977 this time. If you want to learn more about the game's story, here you go. If you potentially watch this on my Just Some Gameplay channel, I've got a show to do here, so I can't spend too much time here. The gameplay for this game is very similar to the first game, except this time around the game feels more slippier, I guess would be the right word. I don't know, something about this one's controls feel a bit worse than the first game. Also, I captured many moments where the physics went all out of whack and it was pretty amusing. But my crappy capture device decided not to save it, so I can't show you. You'll just have to take my word for it. At least this time around you get extra power-ups. Why didn't I just say that instead of pickup weapons for the last? One thing I forgot to mention about the first game is each character has their own special weapon. I guess I just expect you to know that since all these other games I've talked about today have them. Anyway, this game has them too. One new thing they added was special power-ups to your vehicles, depending on what map you're in. Like a flying saucer mode in this level. Again, I can't show it because I got it in the now deleted video. By the way, I know using a bigger vehicle seems cool in concept, but in practice it's a real pain since it takes up most of the screen. You can go in the first person mode, another thing I forgot to mention about the first game, but it just doesn't feel right. The modes are pretty much the same in this game, except this time Arcade and Quest are swapped around on the mode selection screen. So that's different. Anyway, I played survival mode with a garbage truck in Florida, and I was done after that. In some ways, this game is better, but with the more slippery controls and strange physics, it's worse at the same time. So I guess I'd recommend it just as much as the first. Now on to the final game in the Vigilante 8 series at this time, as well as the final game for this video. Yeah, believe it or not, Vigilante 8 had a game on a 7th gen console in 2008. That game is Vigilante 8 Arcade for Xbox 360 via Xbox Live Arcade. At first I wasn't sure if this was a sequel or not, but apparently it's a remake of the first game with some elements from Second Offense. I had no clue this game existed until I saw a Gaming Pastimes video on it. So let's see how the game is for us. Me, I guess. Yeah. Well, here we go. Let's see that next-gen Vigilante 8 style. What a great time. The game seems to run at a smooth 60 FPS, though you probably can't tell here. And yes, the game does have HD graphics, I just didn't capture it in HD. Anyway, the game does primarily play the same as the first two games, but in some ways it feels better, and worse. I noticed the physics for the game feels just as, if not more, wonky than Second Offense. But it's mostly only a problem when you're trying to make precise moves. The modes are pretty much the same here, except I don't think Survival is here. But there is a new mode called Freewheelin', which I'll get to here in a bit. I almost made it all the way through Quest mode, but the game decided it didn't want my opponent to die. Shut up and bleed, you motherfucker. Stupid game. But anyway, there's a nice variety of maps here. I'm not really sure if any of these are new, but there are some decent ones here. Now when it comes to the Freewheelin' mode I mentioned earlier, I think it's just practice mode. I didn't play enough of it to be sure, but I figured that once I saw no other vehicles in the maps. And of course, you have some DLC here. They generally don't cost that much, but here they are if you want it. assuming they're still there. In terms of the multiplayer, I thought for sure they'd pull a online-only multiplayer trick, as this was the generation that started that crap. But, believe it or not, local multiplayer for up to 4 people is here. Of course I didn't capture footage of it, but it's here. This really isn't the greatest VC game, and it's not even really the greatest Vigilante 8 game, but it's playable. If it was like this, but was released at retail price, I'd be more negative towards it, even if it included all the DLC. But for a $5 XBLA game, you could do a whole lot worse. So if you're curious about the game, it wouldn't set you back much at all to get it, assuming the game is still there when you're watching this video. And that concludes this list of VC games, ladies and gentlemen. Like I said, this is a short list compared to how many games there are that try to imitate Twisted Metal, let alone vehicle combat games. But I feel like some of these games could be nice alternatives if you want to take a break from how the usual Twisted Metal setting is. I do hope you enjoyed this video, and let me know what your favorite VC game is, whether it's like Twisted Metal, is Twisted Metal, or not. Until then, like this video if you liked it, subscribe for more of these or any other types of videos I make, and thanks for watching.